Hi, I am Meredith Muller with Essential Elements, and today we're going to be talking about battery. This is a bite-size portion of torts, intentional torts to be specific. So let's get going. So let's see where we are with the big picture first. Okay, remember with torts, we're either dealing with generally, it's going to be intentional torts, negligence, or strict liability. Okay, so we're in intentional torts right now. So torts, intentional torts, and then within intentional torts, we have our personal injury intentional torts. So torts that you can commit against a person. Okay, other torts, we know that we can commit intentional torts against property as well. But today we're discussing battery, okay, which is one of our torts against the person that affects one's body. So battery, okay, assault and false imprisonment, we can talk about it a little bit later. So with battery, we have to show elements, hence essential elements, right? So the first thing that you have to show in order to prove battery is intent, all right? Battery is an intentional tort. Okay, so you cannot have battery without intent. Well, how do you show intent? We're going to talk about it, but it's either shown by desire or knowledge to a substantial certainty. Okay, what do we have to intentionally do? We have to intentionally touch someone. So we have to show a touching or contact, if you will. So an intentional touching that causes harm or offense. Okay, so in order to prove your prima facie case for battery, you have to prove an intentional touching that causes harm or offense. Okay, so let's talk about that in detail. So when we're talking about putting together our rule statements for battery, okay, how are we going to write about this? You know that you can say rules in several different ways, as long as they contain all of the elements, right? So we can say a battery is an intentional touching that causes harm or offense. We can say you're intentionally causing harmful or offensive contact. Or we can say battery is the intentional causing of harmful or offensive contact with another person without consent. Blah, that's a lot. The without consent part to me is a defense, so I don't include it in my prima facie case. I think it's enough to show an intentional touching that causes harm or offense. But my point here is that how you say your rule is not as important as whether you have all of your elements in it. Okay, so make sure that whenever you're addressing battery, that you mention all of the elements and always consider defenses. Okay, so that without consent is the defense here. All right, so let's talk about intent for just a few minutes. How do we show intent that's required for battery? Right. Well, as we can see here, intent for intentional tort liability can either be by desire or knowledge to a substantial certainty. And defendant can be held liable even if there's no proof of any desire to cause harmful or offensive contact. It's sufficient that the defendant had knowledge to a substantial certainty that such contact would occur. Okay, what do I mean by that? Whoa, that's a lot of information, right? Okay, well, look at Miss Lucy pulling the ball away from Charlie Brown. Okay, she did not slap him in the face. She did not physically touch him. She did not physically push him to the ground. And we'll talk about touching in a minute, but basically, what's her intent here? Her intent is for him to miss the ball and land on the ground. Okay, that landing on the ground is the contact. So if she did not desire for him to hit the ground, she at least knew to a substantial certainty that he would try to kick the ball and fall to the ground. So she had knowledge to a substantial certainty that Charlie Brown would have contact with the ground. Okay, note here that Lucy does not have to intend harm or offense. She only has to intend the contact that causes harm or offense. Does that make sense? Let me say it one more time. So Lucy does not have to intend to touch Charlie Brown, and she does not have to intend harm or offense. All she has to do is intend, either by desire or knowledge to a substantial certainty, that contact would occur, and that contact results in harm or offense. Okay, so let's go a step further. Touching, what do we mean by touch? Well, I can punch you in the face. All right, that is a touch. I am physically touching your skin or your body. Okay, that's easy. That's a battery. All right. Well, as long as it causes harm or offense, it's a battery. So that's what we have in this image here. Or we can touch or make contact with something closely connected to your body. Okay, so if somebody comes along and grabs a purse off of your arm, okay, he doesn't physically touch your skin, he doesn't physically touch your body, but he grabs something closely connected to your body. Okay, that is enough for a touching. So one of the things that law professors like to test is that touching element. So if you see a red flag fact, okay, wherein the person herself is not actually touched, but something closely connected to her is, then you need to flag that as an issue and discuss it. Okay, don't just know the rule and gloss over it. Actually show your thought process and say, you know what, that cookie was attached to her hand when it was grabbed away. Therefore, that's probably a sufficient contact required for battery. Make sense? Okay, let's keep going. Harm or offense. Okay, harm or offense. Here's the key. Again, you do not have to intend harm or offense. You only have to intend the harmful or offensive contact. Okay, contact has to result in harm or offense. Harm, easy. Okay, you got a broken leg. You're missing a front tooth. You're bleeding. Okay, that's harm, your physical harm. All right. Your offense is whether a reasonable person would have been offended by the contact. Now, I don't know about you, but if somebody pulled a football away from the ground as I was trying to kick it, if I'm not hurt by falling on the ground, I would at least be offended. Okay, at least be offended. So if a reasonable person would have been offended by the contact, then that is enough to prove offense under the tort of battery. Okay. So watch out for the touching issue and watch out for the harm or offense issue. Just because somebody is not physically harmed does not mean that there's no battery, because we can use harm or offense to prove battery. Okay. Finally, don't forget about defenses. The main defense with battery is going to be consent. All right, look at these guys. I love my Georgia Bulldogs. These guys probably consented to this. All right, they're on a football field. They're playing a game of football. They know they're going to get tackled. All right, so here's another key. Law professors like to test the scope of consent. Okay, so be careful with that. Yes, it might be a football player. He might be on a field and he might have consented to be tackled, but did he consent to get his face mask ripped off? Probably not. So that goes beyond the scope of intent. Okay, so pay attention to your defenses as well. So again, for battery, we need intent, okay, contact that results in harm or offense. Okay, and then make sure you look for defenses. And that, guys, is going to be your prima facie case and your defenses. So let's test our knowledge a little bit. Okay, has a battery been committed? D shoots but misses. Okay, and D stands for defendant here. Defendant and plaintiff. Defendant shoots at plaintiff but misses. Has a battery been committed? Well, let's go through our elements. An intentional touching that causes harm or offense. There's no touching here, guys. No touching. So therefore, no battery. Okay, what about defendant shoots at plaintiff, intending just to miss the plaintiff, but the bullet hits plaintiff's arm? This one's a little tricky. Let's go through our elements. Okay, so we have an intentional shooting. Okay, but do we have intentional contact? Well, the bullet did actually hit plaintiff's arm, but the defendant didn't mean to hit plaintiff's arm. He meant to miss the plaintiff. Okay, so maybe he just intended to scare the plaintiff. Maybe he intended an assault. We'll talk about assault later. But maybe he intended an assault, but he ended up committing a battery. If you haven't already learned this, you will. The doctrine of transferred intent applies here. So we can transfer defendant's intent to commit the assault to his intent to commit the battery. Okay, so we have intent here because we can use the doctrine of intent to transfer the intent, defendant's intent for assault, to the intent to commit a battery. So we have intent, and then look, do we have contact? Yes. Okay, the bullet hit him in the arm. Do we have harmful or offensive touching? Yes, he was hit in the arm with a bullet. Okay, if he's not hurt, he's at least offended by that one. So that's going to be a battery, guys. All right, let's try this one. Plaintiff and defendant has an argument, and defendant yells, "I'm going to kill you." Okay, well, let's go through the elements. All right, do we have intent here? Yes, we have intent for harmful contact because the defendant said, "I'm going to kill you," right? Okay, but do we actually have contact or touching? No, no touching here, just a threat, an assault maybe, but not. We'll learn that later because it has to be immediate. We have to learn the surrounding circumstances. But no battery here because there's no contact, no harmful or offensive contact. How about defendant and plaintiff have an argument and defendant spits at plaintiff? All right, let's go through our elements. Okay, number one, is there intentional contact? Okay, if defendant has spit at plaintiff, intending for that spit to touch the plaintiff, there is intentional contact. Desire, if he either desires the spit to hit the plaintiff, or he has knowledge to a substantial certainty that the spit is going to hit the plaintiff, then we have intent here. We need more facts. How close are they? Okay, is he right in his face or is he 20 feet away? All right, if he's 20 feet away, probably not likely that the spit is going to hit him, and he doesn't have knowledge to a substantial certainty that the contact will occur. So probably no battery if he's 20 feet away. But if he's in his face, he probably has knowledge to a substantial certainty that the spit will hit the plaintiff. And if it does, that's the contact. That's the contact you need. Is it intentional contact? Yes. Desire or natural or knowledge to a substantial certainty. Okay. Harm or offense. Spit probably didn't hurt anybody, unless you get some kind of disease or whatever. But you're at least offended. I would be offended if somebody spit on me. Okay, so plaintiff and defendant have an argument and spits at plaintiff. Last one, guys. Okay, plaintiff and defendant are participating in an ice hockey game in a park. Plaintiff and defendant are skirmishing for the puck near the sidewall of the rink. D intentionally delivers a hard body check that throws plaintiff into the wall, and the collision badly injures plaintiff. All right, let's go through our elements. Number one, is there an intentional touching? Yes, there is a hard body check, okay, that was delivered intentionally. So we're given the fact that it's intentional, and we're given the fact that we've got a contact because it throws him against the wall, okay? So intentional contact, causing harm or offense. Yes, it badly injures the plaintiff, but we might have a defense here because they're hockey players and they're voluntarily engaged in a hockey game. So it's arguable that our plaintiff consented to this contact, to this harmful or offensive contact. So that is how you analyze it. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to see how we would write this if it was tested on an essay. Okay, so hold on a second. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you, and I will show you a question, an essay question here. Okay, so if we were writing about battery, this is an essay question from the book, Essential Elements, 1L, Contracts, Torts, and Criminal Law. And we're asking about whether Barb is liable for battery. Okay, and in this fact pattern, much longer fact pattern, and it tests lots of intentional torts here, but battery is one of them. And Barb rides her bicycle really quickly towards Sam, okay, intending to scare him. And he is afraid that he is about to be hit. So he jumps out of the way and lands on the sidewalk. Okay, so those are our facts. So let's analyze it. Is Barb liable for battery? So if we're following IRAC, this is our issue statement. This is our header, by the way. We always organize our essays by using headers. So our header is battery. Our issue is Barb liable for battery? Okay, then we put our rule. Okay, again, rule can be stated lots of different ways as long as you have all of the elements in there. Battery is defined as an intentional touching that results in harm or offense. Intent can be established either through actual intent, meaning desire, or knowledge to a substantial certainty. Okay, so we have to take each one of those elements. Let's talk about intentional first. Barb acted intentionally. Notice that I have italicized the word intentionally to show my grader that this is what I'm discussing. So here's our issue, here's our rule, here's our analysis of the first issue. Barb acted intentionally as she believed Sam wanted to kill her, and she threatened to get him first. Okay, that was in the fact pattern. Okay, she was also aware that Sam was present and intentionally rode her bike towards him as rapidly as she was able. Okay, so that is our intent. All right, so she did swerve at the last minute and could claim that she did not intend to hit him and in fact did not hit him. Okay, but because she knew to a substantial certainty, there's our substantial certainty intent element. Okay, so we can prove with knowledge to a substantial certainty that, or she can prove that she had intent to knowledge to a substantial certainty that Sam would hit the ground, okay, while he was trying to get out of the way. Okay, the fact that he hit the ground, again, that is italicized because that's our touching. Okay, so the fact that he hit the ground while trying to get out of the way is the intentional touching. Okay, and harm is also established because the fact pattern tells us that Sam suffered injuries as a result of hitting his head on the ground. Therefore, Barb is liable for battery. So that is our conclusion. So again, using IRAC, battery is our issue. Is she liable for battery? Define battery, okay, and then analyze each element. There's an intentional touching, okay, that resulted in harm or offense. And therefore, our conclusion, Barb is liable for battery. Got to worry about defenses. We might have incapacity here. She's 14. She's mentally disabled. We've got, tort maybe hold her mother responsible for those actions, etc. But that is basically how you analyze a battery essay. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this little small bite. It is part of the larger torts course if you're interested in learning more. All right, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.